Welcome to the Fundraising Elevator, where we're all headed up. This podcast is a production of Elevate, an online learning platform for fundraising event professionals. We're coming to you today from the studios of the AV department. Please welcome our hosts, Kristen Steele and Samantha Swaim.
Welcome to the Fundraising Elevator, where we're all headed up. Welcome to 2025. We're here in a new year.
We are.
We have some exciting things coming up we want to make sure everyone knows about. We are just a few months away from the Elevate conference.
That's hard to believe.
I know.
And yet, here we are.
Here we are. 2-day conference dedicated to fundraising events, all about how to make your events a movement, build your fundraising coffers through your fundraising event. It is a hybrid event, and it is hybrid because we have amazing production partners that support us.
It's true.
And we're excited to be in studio today with one of our production partners. Joining us today, we're going to talk all about content capture with Christine of the AV department. And we hope that we'll see you on March 12th and 13th at the Elevate conference. It is hybrid this year, so you can tune in from anywhere, or you can travel to Portland and join us. We're going to be at Avenue, which is a space that Christine knows very well. The Avenue space is owned by the AV department. We're excited to be able to partner with them. So today we are talking all about content, story, content capture. So why don't we officially introduce Christine to the audience?
Let's. Christine Campbell is a marketing and communications professional whose experience includes graphic design, strategic messaging, and brand development, first for public agencies and universities, and now is the marketing manager for the AV department in Avenue, Portland. In this role, Christine strives to increase the company's digital presence, drive engagement through social media, and implement impactful content strategies. Welcome to the podcast today, Christine.
Thank you so much. I'm excited for this conversation.
We are excited to have you because I say things like social media and content capture, and all of our fundraising superheroes out there start to freak out because they are already wearing 14 billion hats. And the idea of having to capture something and get it out there to talk about their event, to talk about their organization, can sometimes feel overwhelming. And yet what I love is that what you do feels doable, approachable, but beyond that, it is incredibly impactful.
Yeah.
And so I'm super excited to talk to you today about how folks can start to make inroads in this space for themselves. So events, often the question we get asked is, well, how do you take the event out of the room? Right? Like, it's a moment in time. How does it have more tail? And capturing that event and literally taking it outside of the room with your content capture can be a great way to do that for your organization. The social media and communications that happen around an event are a way to do that. And you do all the social media posting for the venue Avenue and for the production work at the AV department. I think that a lot of folks feel like they don't have the time for this. What was your approach when you first started doing event coverage on social media?
Sure. It's a great question. It's 5 years, about 5 years. And at the beginning of 2020, I came on board, and my whole goal was just get a few pictures of the room, just show what the room looked like. This is our production work. And then, oh, gee, what happened in the beginning of 2020? Hey, and there went the room.
Something, right.
What room? So with the pandemic, we went virtual, and we did nearly 1,000 virtual events, many of them with you.
Yes.
And I had to shift. I had to start telling the story of the event. There was no room to show.
Yeah.
And so that transferred my thinking about it. And now that we're back in the room, I get both. I get to show what the room is, but keep that story. And as I've often heard you say, think about why we gather. We gather to be part of something. Mm-hmm. And so I look for that. What has it felt like to be part of this event for the guest experience? And how do I share that in the content?
Yeah.
I love, too, what you just said about the idea of almost now putting both of those pieces together and pulling back the curtain a little bit, right? Because I do think there's that polished moment of front-facing event, capital E, but then there's all the pieces and the integrations that happen to get to that place, and some of that is the story and the adventure, too.
It is. And Admittedly, I do avoid a lot of behind the scenes
Right.
about us.
Right.
Because we are supposed to be behind the scenes.
Right.
Right? It's never about us. I always try to have my content focus on our client and what they're doing. So sometimes in a month, I'll sprinkle in 1, maybe 2 that shows the team in some way. And it gets a lot of traction, admittedly. But I don't want to overdo it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? It's not about us. So when I see our client or our partners do the behind the scenes, then I share it.
Yep.
So I take advantage of what our partners are doing and make it that behind the scenes, pull the curtain back without it being self-serving in some way to say, oh, look what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's an interesting gift that you're providing to your clients, right? In that so many of our nonprofits have lots of roles that they're playing, and just executing the event is hard on their team. Capturing it is also hard. And sometimes I find, or I see, that the events that we're producing together, you're able to capture really beautiful, dedicated storytelling content about their event that maybe they have one snapshot they got at the end of the night. You know, they're like tired and they're like, oh, one more picture of the team. But you have developed for them this beautiful story narrative. And then when you share that out, it gets shared by the client. So I think it's a beautiful gift. But you just said that you make some choices about how you share that story and also what gets traction. I'm curious, what type of content gets more attention or more shares and likes and attraction, sort of attention to it?
Mm-hmm. When I know I'm going to an event, and especially if it's a new client, I look to see how they use social media. And if they are active on social, I know whatever I post is going to have a greater likelihood of getting traction if they engage with it. Yeah. And one of the greatest tools recently is on Instagram. It's the collaborator tag.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So instead of just tagging another account, you invite them to be a collaborator on it. It's literally the word Instagram uses. And if they accept, and it's completely voluntary, it's not forcing them to do it, then that post goes out to their feed.
As if it's their post.
As if it's their post. And I've started to do that when I feel confident my content is something they want.
Yeah. Got it.
Then because if they have photographers there and their social media person's doing, I think, okay, let them do their thing. I don't want to step on any toes. And if I tag them as a collaborator and they share it out, oh my goodness, it just takes off. And we get followers, we get more likes. We're sharing that the audience then. So that's a great tool. I keep that in mind. Like, what can I share that they might want to do that with?
Yep.
There's also, I've had some things take off, and when I first started Reels, then I had a bunch take off and then it declined. And so then I tried, okay, I'm going to do a really short video and put it with a bunch of photos in a post. And that took off and then it declined. And I think this is just the magic of the algorithm at work. Nothing I can control.
Yes.
And so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to try to capture the best content I can and vary my posts so that they're not all identical. So that maybe the algorithm goes, oh, that's different. Let's just push this one out.
Right. Well, and I think for our nonprofit friends, the collaborator is an interesting way for them to be continuing to further their relationship with vendor partners.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sponsors.
Yes.
All of those people that you're looking to sort of augment relationships with to show continued support of your mission, that becomes a great opportunity for you to reach their audience and show their impact on your event. I think it's a really smart way for folks to partner and to think about social media as a way to amplify that.
Well, I mean, let's look at this podcast, for example, right? So the podcast is released, and on the day it's released, we share out a video about the podcast. And in that video, we invite you as a collaborator, since you're the guest. And so when you share that out, our audiences will be overlapping. For our nonprofit friends out there that have a staff person that is in charge of content capture, or a volunteer that they're asking to do some content capture, and they're trying to figure out how they grab content of the event, they should follow your social media. You do a beautiful job of grabbing the content in a way that tells a whole story. So real quick, so folks are following your social media, what are the handles that they should follow to better understand the storytelling that you do?
For the AV department, it is at the AV department spelled out and versions of that, because for the AV department, those were not all created at the same time.
Right.
Yes.
So
Yes.
isn't that the worst? For Avenue, it is literally Avenue Portland. And that's the same on all the platforms. And we do LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook. It was much easier to start those all at once and have the same handle.
Yes.
Which we'll link to all of those in the show notes so that everybody has them handy. I find that you often get more content at events than your clients holding the events do. And yet having that capture can be a critical way of keeping the event in donors' minds. How do you approach capturing content on site? I know we talked about sort of thinking about how clients use social media and what that looks like. But when you're actually on site at the event, what are you thinking about? What are you looking to capture?
Sure. Sometimes I'll go in knowing there's a special thing that I must capture. Like I'll get a hint from the team, or I'll be able to peek at the script when I show up at the tech table. But most of the time, I walk in as a guest does. It's completely new to me. It's completely fresh. And I walk into the room and I get the big picture first. What does the room look like before doors open? And there's that special moment when all the tables are set and the floor is clear of the catering staff. And then I take my photos really fast. And then the doors open. And so at that point, I start looking at all the details. Are there special activities that the guests can participate in? And how do those tie into the event theme? And how does that relate back to the organization's mission? So I look through for those through lines through everything in the room. Maybe I already know this. Maybe there's going to be a special entrance. And I position myself. At a number of events, we might have a roving camera, Shannon. And so I know I keep my eye on Shannon.
Oh, good idea.
So wherever he starts moving, I stalk him. I follow him, and I'm right behind over his shoulder because I think, okay, something's about to happen. So I watch the key players in the room to see where they might be moving to. And then when I go in, I try to capture every type of thing I can. I do horizontal. And if there's lulls where I've captured a bunch of things and right now there's not a photo opportunity, then I'll be sitting back by the corner and I'll be putting them to stories on Instagram and tagging. And I try to do things separately so that they're most shareable. So I might take a picture, if I can, of the food station and then make sure to tag the client and the caterer. Maybe the floral is amazing. So I take just the photo of that and share it to the story and tag the florist and I tag the client so that they can individually share those. Because if you're put into one big giant thing, it reduces the chance of it being shareable for each individual account.
I was today years old. That right
Learn
there.
something new.
I was today years old. Thank you for that. Yes.
You're welcome. Yay. That's what, if there's one takeaway that anyone listening can have from this, it's perfect. I'm very happy.
Perfect.
So then so I do a vertical and I try to share it out during the event. And I take horizontal that maybe I could use in the post or I could use it in the newsletter. I could use it on the website. And then I try to do video, mostly vertical for a reel. But at Avenue, for example, if I see, wow, the lighting is amazing for this event, and there's a moment when I see it's about to be used maybe for a special raffle or auction item or an incredible giving opportunity, then I'm ready and I do it horizontal because then I could maybe use that in other places on the website or on YouTube. So I try to get every variety I have so that at the end I could go back through and not feel like, oh, shoot, I just missed it. I only have a horizontal of this and that's not going to fit in the post very well. So I try to get as much as I can really fast. And I'm not great in speed. So if it's really busy and I know, okay, I have to prioritize what I post, I still have this collection later I could go back to for other purposes.
So when you go back to it, what are all the technical tools you're using? Not just the platforms you're posting on, but what are all the tools to capture the content? Are you using just a phone? What are you editing in? What are the tools that you use most?
I have my phone. The media team shared with me a fancy camera and I got another lens for it. And then I still needed my cell phone for the big wide shots. And those look entirely different. And that bothered me a lot in my posts. And my phone died planned obsolescence. So I had to upgrade anyway. And I thought, all right, I'm just going to look for one that has a great camera.
Yep.
They're not great as phones anymore, but they are great for that purpose. So I have a Pixel 8 Pro from last year that has 3 cameras, and it is amazing. The resolution is super high. The video quality is really great. One of our teams, I had 2 photos on my computer yesterday, and I said, I'm trying to decide which one to use for this purpose. And she says, well, that one looks like it's professionally edited. And I laughed because that was the one I did, and the other one was the professionally edited photo.
That's funny.
So I just go in with my cell phone, and afterward, I use software called Movavi. I'm the only one in the office who does, but it works with my brain and my processes. Certainly, a lot of people use Adobe Premiere on our video team for this podcast. It's our producer, editor, he uses DaVinci.
Okay.
CapCut is something that is used by a lot of social media posts on your phone apps or other apps like that. I try to use Instagram native audio because that does increase the likelihood of your reel being pushed out as opposed to adding your audio first externally and then adding it.
Also, today years old. That's fascinating.
Learning new things.
Okay, this is fascinating.
Does the Google Pixel have the ability to do what Apple calls a live photo?
Mm-hmm. They call it best shot, I think.
Okay. I have found that actually, because on an event site, my content capture is never what your content capture is. I am running a million different directions.
It's not true. I've seen some really awesome posts you've done.
But when I am looking for a shortcut to be able to get quick content that I can turn into a reel, I have found that by taking a photo in live and I put it into a reel, it gives it just enough motion that it looks like I did all video capture without actually having to like set up a scene and get the shot and get the motion of it. I can just like snap a photo, but there's enough motion of the volunteer like getting into place or smiling for the camera that it gives it a video effect. And so that's my like little shortcut on site.
That is awesome. That is super smart.
I thought it was brilliant the first time I saw it.
One of our auctioneer friends, I see her do it all the time. We chat about it. She loves the hyper fast setting on her phone too. So she'll run through the room and have it on there and they're like,
Here's all the things that happened.
I keep wanting to do like a hyper fast video capture of a completely empty room to completely set all the way through the event, all the way back to empty and sort of do the whole life cycle of a...
Yeah, we just had a big event that we actually wanted to do that for. And what I discovered is there's so much time going into like tiny movement in the room that
one screwing in, going into the one.
That the before and after picture has a bigger impact than the like sped up because there's process. Such a long chunk of the day where you're just barely seeing any movement happen where like someone's up on a lift in the sky doing adjustments.
And to our production partners, we know you are doing amazing work during that time. We do, true. And we want to capture that. We're just thinking of the at-home audience.
Yeah.
How do you budget your time capturing and posting content each week? Because keeping in mind, our friends out there, comms is often something that's been added to their plate. Let's say they've had the event. Let's say they've shot a bunch of stuff. They got stuff up by the hair of their chinny chin chin right after the event to kind of do that immediate piece, but they want to do some post and or they want to continue doing social media and content capture throughout the year, not just their event. How do you budget? What does that look like for folks? How can they start to break it down into pieces that feel doable?
Mm-hmm. This may make them feel better, but I will admit I don't post on a regular schedule. Ooh. I know that's what influencers absolutely recommend. Mm-hmm. It's just not doable for me.
Okay.
During gala season, we are so busy.
Yep. Yeah.
So I could cover 7 to 10 events in 1 week. And if I were to space those out on a regular schedule, I could be posting 2 months after the event.
Yep, that's true.
That's not great. So I know I have a lot during those gala seasons, and then it slows down. And I just remind myself, if I miss a week or I have 5 in 1 week, it's content that I know has value.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I prioritize that over just making sure I post.
Yep.
And personally, not specifically nonprofit organizations, but all the other industries, if I see an account that posts again and again and again, it starts to feel like they're just posting to post.
Right.
So I'd rather follow an account that's a little bit more irregular on their schedule, but each one I want to see and it has some value to me.
Yep.
Content over timing.
Yes.
And I love the thread that you keep coming back to. You're thinking about your audience.
Mm-hmm.
You're capturing, you're thinking about your audience. You're posting, you're thinking about your audience. How you I appreciate that. And I think if nothing else, if our nonprofit friends are thinking about their audience, which is hopefully largely comprised of partners, supporters, donors, thinking about how you're talking to them, what that looks like, how you're continuing the relationship through what you're offering them and the stories you're telling can be really an important way to continue contact with them throughout the year.
Absolutely. That's the culture of our company is to prioritize the relationship over the long term. And I think social media is just another extension of that.
Yeah. Well, and I think you do beautiful content capture, but we have seen an increase in content capture happening from lots of vendor partners. And so even if the nonprofit is just short on time, that I have seen organizations able to share out what their auctioneer has created, what their AV production partner has created, that gets some news out there in the first week after the event about what the event was like, and then they can have time to edit their content together and do a meaningful, thoughtful, curated post for their audience. So there's an added benefit when everyone in the room is capturing content that you can share out. We just did a big event where every single partner in the room was doing all sorts of content capture. And I don't think the organization actually posted until 2 weeks after their event. They just kept sharing what was being posted, and that gave them time to actually put together a really beautiful, thoughtful thank you post out to all of their partners. So that resource that you offer, I think, is a really valuable one that extends that relationship beyond just the production element in the room.
Yep.
Well, we're going to take a short break and we'll be back to talk more. I want to be able to dive in with you a little bit about all of the assets that get created for an event. So we'll be back.
Great.
Are you ready to engage supporters and grow your base with your own podcast? Then let us introduce you to our partners at the AV department in Portland, Oregon. In addition to delivering exceptional live event audiovisual production and videography, they also have a top-tier production studio and an expert team ready to take your content ideas to the next level. Contact the AV department to schedule a consultation and start bringing your podcast vision to life.
Welcome back to the Fundraising Elevator. We are here with Christine Campbell. She does marketing for our friends at the AV department in Avenue. Consistency. We were talking about this a little bit before the break. Consistency feels more impactful than following all the trends on all the platforms, whatever consistency looks like for you. What has been your approach? And I get on and everything's new every time I get on there, which is its own problem for me. But what has been your approach to staying relevant? I think that often is a barrier for people.
Yes. I know we just took a break, but the question before that, you answered it. It is making it shareable.
Okay.
So I keep in mind the social part of social media.
Oh,
and for
what a
me,
novel idea.
I know, right? Ridiculous.
I knew that.
So I think of it as a way for me to be relevant is to help other people. Yeah. Just like in the fundraising elevator, you say we're all going up. Yeah. That's how I see social media accounts, that I want to like and share and comment on their posts so that they get even more traction on theirs.
Yeah.
There are clients that we work with just once a year for their gala, yet throughout the year, they are my strongest social media contacts. If I see that one of our clients is hiring, I'll share that out so it gets more traction for that. Or if they're doing a special campaign, or if they've just shared a video, like all of that, if I can elevate their post, that makes me more relevant. Selfishly, I remain in their feed probably because I've interacted with them. But more importantly, relationally, they know that we are still a partner. We're just
Yeah.
not the audio team that came in and left.
Yeah.
We want them to succeed in all their services throughout the year.
Julia Campbell is a fundraising consultant that specializes in communication, specifically social media for nonprofits. And some of her sort of like every time she speaks, her key advice that she gives is you can put out as much content as you want, but interacting with your donors' content, interacting with your clients' content is sometimes more valuable and seen as a better value to the organization. And that ability to actually just carve out, half an hour in your week where you scroll through to see what your clients or your donors, especially our nonprofit friends, like look at what your sponsors have been posting and sharing, look at what your donors are posting and sharing. It's a really easy way to quickly say, I see you. And this is great
not only
work.
that, I'm listening.
Yeah.
That's the equivalent online of I'm listening.
Mm-hmm.
And I love your answer to being relevant is actually making an effort.
Yes.
That's how I
Yeah.
stay relevant. Like it's
Mhm.
less the bells and whistles, maybe. It's more, how do I continue in a digital space to be in active relationship with you?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Well, not everyone comes to the table with a lot of marketing experience, but often is asked to take on, especially so often we see like a volunteer or someone who has, in my world, technology is not my first language, right? I have grown up with technology, but for some folks, technology is easy and accessible. And so someone hands them a quick run of show and says, you're doing our social media content. When someone wants to actually like grow that expertise and learn a little bit more, where have you started? Like, how did you start to grow your understanding of this work?
Yes. So when you said you've grown up with technology. When I started in marketing communications, it was print.
Yeah.
And we're all just entirely digital. And in my previous job in iterations, I supervised a team. So I could oversee what they're doing, but I wasn't hands-on with social media.
Yeah.
I was incredibly late just getting my own Facebook account. And so I started at zero. And I started by watching what partners like you all do, how you were referring to this world of nonprofit fundraising, because my nonprofit experience was public and education.
Yeah.
Totally different.
Yeah.
And so I learned really quickly, what are others doing? What is the language we use?
Yeah.
And what's appropriate, what's not appropriate in what you share. So that was the first education, just free. I'm just looking to see what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
And then knowing what my goals are for the posts, I just tried. And looking back at the early posts, my ability to take a good photo has really evolved. It's almost embarrassing to look at some of the early ones like, oh, goodness, I couldn't even frame the photo right then. So just practice. Just the more I did it, the better I became. And the more I edit my photos, the faster I am at it. And just this last year, it's been really working in the video realm because of Avenue. It lends itself a little bit more for me to capturing the video because Avenue touches all aspects of the event.
Yeah.
Where the AV department is really production, and I want to respect everybody else. Like we're one of the vendors, but as a venue, it gives me a lot more freedom to capture more. So I've been doing video and I just try. And so my advice to people who this is handed to them, that's not their experience, hopefully they like it because that matters.
It
If
does.
they don't like it, it's going to be frustrating.
It reads.
That just try. And if your content has value, no matter how frequently you're doing it or how great it looks, you're doing great.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Showing up is half the battle.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of continuing to learn forward. Social media sometimes has been explained to me, the Luddite, as sort of that stream that's going by, and there's never a perfect time to jump in. And often what you do goes by.
Right.
But that consistency of showing up and just kind of continuing to put it out there, you continue to learn forward with what's out there.
Yeah. Because you mentioned Avenue, I want to highlight a a reason I go to your social media, but a way I use your social media. Because I think our nonprofit friends out there could be thinking about this when they're planning their event, which is I go to look at the venue photos to see all the ways that it's been decorated, that it's been staged, that the room setup has been, utilized. And I frequently will click through all the photos that you've shared on the Avenue social media to look for, has anyone done a stage over here? Has anyone put the bar over there? Has anyone changed the flow of the room at all to better understand how to use that venue? And an organization that's planning an event at a new venue, going to the venue's social media is a really great way to get to know the venue really quickly and see what's possible in that venue. Because now you have the expertise of the venue to be able to see.
Yes. You hit on exactly my strategy.
Love that.
So when I post maybe up to 10. Instagram lets me do 10, Facebook more. But I might have 40, 50 photos that are actually decent to share. And I started a Flickr account for Avenue. And I know that our clients, either prospective or those who have booked, go and they look and they look for exactly what you just described, because they might reference, I saw at this event, the bar was here. And I think, yes, it's working like it should. It's providing a great resource for people that will make their work easier.
Yeah, I love that. So let's pan out a little bit and talk about other content that can be used to take an event out of a room. So the AV department often does sizzle reels for an event. So can you talk us through what a sizzle reel is and what they're most often used for?
Absolutely. A sizzle reel is a quick-paced video that captures the essence of your event. It might have audio sound bites from people from the stage. It might have actual recorded testimonials that we do of attendees. And it puts it together so that even if you weren't there, you have a feel of what the event was like.
Yes.
And there are a lot of uses for the sizzle reel. I've seen it immediately used after the event, maybe to drive more donations. It could be to thank people who were there. And it's very shareable. I have certainly watched sizzle reels to see who was captured in the background or what scene there is. So if you were at that event, you're probably going to watch it, and you might watch it more than once because you think, boy, did I miss it? Was I right there? And the more views it has, the more it'll be shared out. So it's very shareable, especially if you tag a lot of the people in it, as many as the platforms will let you tag. And then after that period, that's immediately after the event, before the event happens the following year is another great opportunity to bring it back, because it reminds the people who were there why they loved being there and that they want to be sure to go get their tickets. And for people who missed it, it shows them why they don't want to miss it this year. And it can be used on the website for where the tickets and registration are. So it's a great capture of everything that was great about it and is future promotion.
We have utilized, now I'm going to put your team on the spot a little bit. We've utilized the expertise of the fact that you have incredible filmmakers on your team to do content capture live during the event and actually close the event with a sizzle reel. Because when we've all just experienced something together, it's a really powerful way to say, look at what we just did. And it's a really fun way because people are doing what you just said of like, oh, do I see myself? Where am I? So we've utilized sizzle reels to close an event as the big bow on the back end of the event, yay, we just did this. And then we also, like you said, utilize it as a promotional piece coming up. We have done the Elevate conference with you all now for 6 years. And in that, every year you capture sizzle reel content for us. The nice part about that is that we can utilize that content from 6 years to pull together to show all the different textures of what the conference has been. And we don't just have to rely on one content capture. We can now have 6 years of content capture. So having that sizzle reel post event sometimes is a way to take your event out of the room, but also as a way to bring people in for the following year. But you don't just do sizzle reel content. Your team also does a lot of our video storytelling for events that we show big on the screen in the event, whether it be a client story with a direct appeal story. Sometimes it's just an organizational story about this is what we do and how we do it. And your team does such a beautiful job. They also understand the limitations in the nonprofit sector around budget, around time. We go into someone's home and are asking them to be vulnerable, and your team is so good at making sure that they feel supported and that it's not taking up days of their time, but it's done in a timely fashion. But that content can be used not just in the room. So you are producing hundreds of videos every year for the nonprofit community. Where do you see people best leveraging those after their event, before their event? Where are people utilizing those?
Yes. It is so essential for the event, but yeah, don't just leave it in the event.
Yep.
There's so many more purposes. I will usually see the special appeal video be posted shortly after the event, within a month or two, to drive more donations.
Yes.
It could reference the content of it, or it could reference we're just 10,000 short of our event goal, and it helps the people who weren't in the room. This is the appeal, because certainly a lot of organizations might not want to emphasize the party aspect if that's the kind of event they have. But the appeal is a great way to drive donations for those who didn't attend. Also, if let's say your event is in the spring, we'll bring it back out for Giving Tuesday in the fall. There might be a special program or service that was mentioned in the special appeal video. So then I can see using it then to highlight that program. Maybe it's success, maybe it's expansion. It's another way to show how that service operates with taking the focus a little bit less off of the individual, but it's still that individual story.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the organizational video, depending on its content, I can see, let's say a staff member was telling how meaningful it is for them to work at this organization. Well, that short clip could be used when you're recruiting additional staff. It could be used when you're trying to recruit board members. That this is the meaning of being part of this organization. Maybe it was part of a tour of a facility. So maybe that segment talks about the facility when maybe you're doing an open house.
Yep.
And then you could show that without having to get new content because it already exists. One thing to keep in mind is the format of the platform. So YouTube is perfect for the videos in their entirety. And it's a great place to link to from your emails, from your website, embed the whole thing in your website. But on other platforms, you want to cut it up. So a 2-minute, 4-minute video is going to be too long, especially for Instagram. People aren't going to watch the whole thing. But if you have short segments of different interviews or different B-roll, then you get more purpose out of it. You get 5 videos out of the one video, and there's more chance people will watch it when it's shorter.
So a couple of things I want to make sure to highlight. When we are capturing a client story for the special appeal, it's so important that the client knows where it's going to be utilized, right? I think sometimes we are moving quickly in the nonprofit sector and we forget to pause and actually have a conversation with them before it goes on the internet, on YouTube, in social media. So I think it's important just to highlight that when we're doing that, we need to make sure that consent happens each step of the way, enthusiastic and frequent consent. But the other component too, I think that some nonprofits don't necessarily know is if you open a video, if you have the original video file, if you open the video, it usually will open as a QuickTime file. And there is a tool in there called Trim that allows you to do exactly what you're saying, which is just simply trim that short bite and then save it as a short social media post. So if you have a little bite that you want to share, like a tour of your building, and you just want that 40-second clip to then promote, you can do that yourself really simply. So I think that that content that you create for the event can have so many other purposes.
Well, and I think what's great about all of this for folks to remember is I know that for some organizations, the idea of the cost of video production becomes overwhelming, right? When they're looking at it connected to their event. I would also like to underscore that our friends at the AV department in the realm of video production are incredibly nonprofit forward and incredibly cost effective in their brilliant work. But in addition to that, I think it's helpful if folks think about that this has more use than just that one closed room that 200 people are in and it's never going to be seen again.
Yes.
And come into their video plan thinking about that. It's
Yeah.
the consent piece and having those conversations with people. Hey, Jim, on our staff, I would love to have you talk about your experience as a program manager. We're thinking that in addition to this getting shown at the event, we would love to feature it in here and here and here, whatever all those pieces are. But I think if you start to have an imagination about how that footage can communicate your mission outside of that event, in addition to the event, it becomes something that you can get your brain around cost so much more easily. We often tee clients up to have a post-event appeal, to your point of taking that special appeal video once the client has authorized its use after the event and sending out to everybody who maybe was there, but also maybe wasn't at the event. This is the amazing story we all got to hear, and this is why we're in this work together. Please support.
And last season we had Susan Taylor on. She's with Grant Labs, and she talked about the fact that grants are actually moving toward submit your video with your application so we can better quickly understand what you do. And she said that the majority of the videos she submits with grants these days are the organizational video that was used at the event. It's sort of a happy accident, but with that thoughtful planning of this can be used for a grant, it can be used for social media. And then in addition to that, we had an organization do a video with you for their event. It had a powerful impact at their event, so much so that people came to them and talked to them about, wow, that really stuck with me. And so they used it before every conversation during their capital campaign fundraising. And they, across the board, were able to secure and finish their capital campaign using that same video as the intro to the conversation they were having with the donor.
Perfect.
I know. It's like magic what you do. Well, we're going to take a short break and we'll be back to jump into the fundraising elevator with Christine Campbell.
Wonderful.
Unleash the power of events to energize your donors and amplify your mission. Join us at the Elevate Conference in 2025, where you'll learn the essential tools for planning a successful fundraising event. Book your tickets now for March 12th and 13th. This dynamic hybrid conference, hosted at Avenue in Portland, Oregon, and streamed live for our virtual audience, will equip you with practical tools, demos, and templates that you can put to work immediately. Don't miss out. Secure your spot today at Elevate 2025. Visit elevatenonprofit.com to register now. Elevate Conference 2025 is brought to you by Swaim Strategies and the AV Department, powered by elevatenonprofit.com.
Welcome back to the Fundraising Elevator. We are here with Christine Campbell talking about content capture at your event. It's life after your event, the many uses of it. Let's jump in the fundraising elevator, Christine. And every guest we have on, we ask them for a tool or a bit of sage advice for our fundraising superheroes out there so we can all continue heading up. What would you offer them?
My advice is to create value, to go back to the fundamentals of marketing communications, which is whatever information you share, it should be a benefit to your audience. And so if you can't do a lot, this isn't your primary job, just think about what is of value and share that. And then make it shareable. So if it's involves your partners, tag them in it. Make them those collaborators we talked about. Who else is involved in the relationships of your organization? And then how do you bring those relationships into social media? Don't overthink it. Don't try to follow some trend and be cute unless that really reflects your organization. Then that's great. Do that. Be fun. But just be authentic and look for the value in what you're sharing.
Well, that ethos clearly factors into everything you all do. You're a huge partner in the nonprofit sector, and you all have a video production team. You have an event production team that's doing all the audio and projection and lighting that makes or breaks an event. You are doing live streaming partnerships, podcast recordings, and you have a venue that is priced for, designed for a very tech-forward event in the nonprofit sector. And During the pandemic, you all single-handedly transformed what was possible in the entire sector for fundraising events. You were the first, before the pandemic lockdown even happened, to say, we can take this virtual. You were willing to explore.
There's a lot of exploration.
Not just in how to broadcast, but also how to do it effectively with meaning and raise money doing it. And so I cannot overstate the importance of nonprofits knowing you all are out there and following the content you create, because the work that you're doing on your team is a sliver of all the resources you offer, but the social media content is great fodder for ideas for what is available, how other nonprofits are producing their events. So I hope people will follow all the handles. We will post them all
in the show notes.
And I also hope that they'll reach out when they're looking for a tech partner to help them, because I think one of the things we have found working with you all is that you all are always willing to innovate, and innovation does not have to be something that breaks the bank. And that is something that's, I think, going to be needed in this year ahead.
True.
Yeah.
What's the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
Well, we've now revealed that these accounts are just me. So,
Ta-da!
ta-da. Anytime anyone actually message us on any of those accounts, it really is me just answering. So they are more than welcome to reach out that way.
Perfect. We will put links to all those in the show notes. Please follow, like, share. It's a great, great, great test of what effort and observation and thinking about your audience look like.
Thank you for joining us today. We're so excited to have you.
It was an honor. This was a fun conversation. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
The Fundraising Elevator is produced in partnership with Swaim Strategies at the studios of the AV department. The program is produced and directed by Steve Osborne, with audio engineering and original music by Dwayne Anderson, Heidi Christensen, and Adam Breeden. Video production by Shannon Doran. Graphic design by Pendulum Creative Group. Marketing by Lisa Aragon. Support from Mary Elizabeth, Todd Campbell, John Lyles, and Andy Dowsett. And voiceover by Josh Boykin.
Hey y'all, it's Kristen. Before we leave, I want to ask for your help to make the podcast grow. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please like, follow, and subscribe to the Fundraising Elevator. And if you're getting a lot out of the show, share it with a friend. Leave us a review. These things help make sure that the podcast continues heading up. Thanks so much for being here and tuning in.
We've been partnering with Greater Giving for over 20 years as our go-to event auction software. Greater Giving allows us to do our job, planning fundraising events, even better because we can manage guest lists, seating, bid number assignments, and sales all in one place.
That makes it great for our nonprofit partners and their guests. Check out Greater Giving for your next event at greatergiving.com. Link in the show notes.